please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Makkal Needhi Maiam.
Well, there's never a dull moment in Tamil Nadu politics. Tamil film actor Kamal Haasan finally took the political plunge, launched his political outfit from Madurai with Arvind Kejriwal in tow. Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Ronojoy. With me is Shireen. And the PNB fraud case continues to dominate the headlines this evening as well.
So at the outset, let's take a look at the developments surrounding Punjab National Bank and the scam today. The new day fraught with scam updates saw a new letter coming in from Nirav Modi, this time addressed to his employees. Modi says he's not in a position to pay their dues and it would be right on their part to look for other career opportunities. Now this even as Network 18 learns that Nirav Modi has a Belgian passport which he used to travel out of Davos. This is the reason that Indian authorities say they were not able to track him. Nirav Modi gave up his Indian citizenship last year and the government claims he's been illegally holding 2 passports. Now, on the investigation front, sources tell CNBC TV18 that over 150 shell companies are on the Enforcement Directorate's radar. The ED has now started investigations on 17 locations that are believed to be housing these companies. Now, this information follows the arrest of Rajesh Bindal, who was the general manager at PNB's beleaguered Brady House branch between August 2009 and May 2011, the period during which the fake LOUs had allegedly started being issued. This is the 12th arrest by the CBI in this case. Meanwhile, the centre today opposed 2 public interest litigations submitted before the Supreme Court. The first calls for the deportation of Nirav Modi and an independent investigation of his illegal dealings with Punjab National Bank. The second PIL has sought a court-monitored SIT probe into the 11,300 crore rupees scam. The SC will hear the matter on the 16th of March. Now, we've been speaking with top industry voices on this. Here are some reactions.
I am not in a position to comment on what has happened in PNB because I am sure that PNB management would be and their board would be taking stock of the situation, what has gone wrong. But prima facie, yes, it is apparent that all the 3 lines of defense failed to work, and as I said that it is very unusual. It should have not happened. Frauds can happen, but then they can be detected in a very short time, and frauds may be small and may not be detected for a relatively longer time, but this is very unusual that a fraudulent practice of such magnitude goes for such a long period.
I would not hold RBI responsible for what has happened. RBI has some responsibility in terms of supervision, in terms of reviews, but the reality is that the governance of these banks has to be improved.
Well, and staying with PNB, I'm embarrassed as a banker. That's Uday Kotak's reaction to the 11,400 crore rupee alleged fraud at Punjab National Bank. Reacting to the Nirav Modi scandal, Kotak said it is time to focus on a new institutional framework for PSU banks and not finger-pointing at bankers, regulators or others. I caught up with Kotak ahead of this year's Chasing Growth annual conference held by the group. Kotak also hinted that there could be further correction in the stock markets. He believes it will only make Dalal Street more healthy. Take a look at the CNBC TV18 exclusive.
I remember having a chat with you in exactly the same spot last year, and we were talking about the governance premium that India enjoys. In light of what we're seeing happen today, specifically with the public sector banking stocks and its after effect on corporate India in general, do you believe that there is a loss of that governance premium?
I think what's happening in India now from the point of view of institutional investors and investors in general is that the number of companies which would get governance premium would narrow. And I think India overall has to really do a series of things to ensure that we don't get governance discount. And in that context, I'm happy that on behalf of a committee which was formed by SEBI, which I had the privilege of chairing, We have submitted our corporate governance report, and we are awaiting the government and SEBI to take the next steps on that towards a better governed corporate India.
Do you think that there is a need for urgency today? And, you know, I remember listening to what you had to say in Delhi a couple of days ago, where you said that as a banker, you stand ashamed about what has happened as far as the NPA situation is concerned and how the NPA situation has gone out of control, so to speak. You said you were embarrassed, you were ashamed. Again, I ask you this in light of what we've seen happen, because it's not just negligence. It seems to point towards complicity.
You know, I continue to believe that I am embarrassed as a banker, and even more as a part of the financial sector in terms of what has happened in India, especially based on the reports as of now, which is in addition to the whole issue about stress in the financial sector. I think we have to really think about two major areas of the future for banking and finance. That is around governance and ownership of banks in India. And we have talked about it. I think the time has come now for a significant policy and institutional thinking on that rather than more talk. There's a hell of a lot of talk which has gone on. And without pointing fingers, which seems to be the name of the game right now, whether it is the regulator or the banker or anybody else, I think the focus has to be to find institutional framework and a policy kind of approach to fixing some of the key issues in Indian banking.
Let me talk to you about chasing growth, because that is the theme for your conference. You know, you started by talking about the fear of the governance premium shifting to a governance discount. Has the mood soured somewhat? I mean, of course, on account of global factors, local factors, the change as far as macros are concerned, but more so because of the trigger that we've just seen.
No, Shireen, you go back to January, early January, I did speak out about the fact that I was worried about
the possibility of a bubble in the mid-cap side, yes.
In a few stocks, particularly small and mid-cap. So I am glad that the markets have corrected since then, because otherwise you were just seeing first-time savers' monies going into the equity markets in some of the stocks, which could be very easily manipulated as well. So I'm happy from the point of view of longer-term system that the correction has happened. Let me move to fundamental valuations and then to economic growth. I think fundamental valuations are in the process of correction, and we will reach equilibrium at some point of time on a fundamental basis. We are probably still a little away.
When you say little, can you quantify that for us? I mean, how much do you expect?
Markets always surprise you.
What would be a healthy correction?
I think we have seen a close to 8 to 10% correction in the big caps, and probably a 20 to 30% correction in the small and mid caps. So somewhere in the single digit corrections from here is what I would, in the big caps, is what I would see as getting the markets to a fundamentally more healthy level. Now, whether there's 5%, 10%, I think that's something which would give fundamental corrections. But keep in mind, beyond fundamentals, technicals can move markets on either side quite a bit. And fundamentals are not static as well. It also depends on a lot of changing factors. So you've got to keep on moving your fundamental value with the changes. The good news as I see it today, okay, is over the last 3 or 4 years, whenever we would talk about chasing growth, we had a wonderful macroeconomic tailwind in our favor. You know, oil, we've seen it at $30, $40, $50. And our current account under control, fiscal deficit improving year after year. So we had a wonderful macro for the first 3 to 4 years post 2014. But micro was lagging the macro. This time around, as I speak to you, I think micro has picked up. We are seeing growth on the ground, but the macro tailwinds are not as favorable as they were over the last 3 years. But I don't think macro has got very adverse, so I think there's still enough room for growth, and micro is chugging much better. So from a good macro to a challenging micro, we've moved to a good micro and a more challenging macro.
Let me ask you about your own growth opportunities and what you're going to be focusing on. And, you know, the market has been abuzz with what's on your radar and which candidates are potential acquisition targets for you. I'm not going to ask you to name specifics, but can we expect 2018 to be a year where you play consolidator?
Shirin, every year you ask this question in January and get me into trouble. So I will stick to the line, and which has turned out to be right for 2017, and which is that we are always open for opportunity, and it's across the financial services industry.
Including NBFC.
We are, financial services industry is the broad financial services industry. Having said that, we are very focused on creating value for our stakeholders, and we will not rush in to do stupid deals.
But do you get a sense on the basis of what is on your deck today that whether it's valuations, whether it's strategic fit, that there are potential targets there that look attractive to you?
No. I mean, I think the Indian financial sector is a long-term phenomenal opportunity. And therefore, the overall financial sector is something we like. I've spent my life in it, and we continue to be deeply committed to the sector.
Well, that's Uday Kotak there with his take on the road ahead for Dalal Street. Let me quickly take you through today's market action. A last-hour rally pushed Indian equities into the green, which otherwise traded in a narrow range throughout the session. The Nifty ended just shy of the 10,400 mark. The Sensex also gained close to 0.5%. In stock-specific action, PNB closed with marginal gains for a second consecutive day. Investors continued to punish Gitanjali Gems. The stock down another 10%. And speaking of Gitanjali Gems, we have a special report for you this evening. Apart from naming Mehul Choksi, one of the CBI FIRs in the Punjab National Fraud case names 5 people who it says are directors with the Gitanjali Group. But when CNBC TV18's Utkarsh Chaturvedi tried tracking down these directors, he found something unusual. Take a look.
Name Mihir Joshi. Designation Director Geely India. Address Room Number 2, Manu Prasad Chaul, Dahisar East. Name Dinesh Bhatia. Designation Director Nakshatra World and Director Geely India. Address Room Number 3, Bhatia Nivas, Babu Genu Road. If you're familiar with Mumbai, you'd note that these addresses don't point to swanky locations and fancy colonies. These addresses are essentially dingy one-room tenements in Mumbai's slums, something one would not generally associate with a director at a company which boasted a turnover of multiple crore rupees. This dissonance between designation and address applies to at least 3 other people who are, on paper, directors of companies promoted by Mehul Choksi.
We thought we'll go to the addresses to check if the people named in the FIR are authentic or not. And we knew that if they are authentic, they will not be willing to speak on camera given the investigations are on. So we carried a spy cam along.
We started our search with Mihir Bhaskar Joshi, who is listed as the company secretary for Geely India. Official records show he joined the company in 2016. When we neared the address on record, we had to walk the distance. And when we got there, we found someone else in residence.
2 number यही है क्या?
2 number यही है, रूम उनका है, तो मैं भाड़े से रहती हूँ, इधर नहीं रहती।
अच्छा, रूम उनका है, वो यहाँ नहीं रहते।
उनका कुछ कांटेक्ट नंबर मिलेगा?
हाँ, वो भी भाड़े में रहते हैं, आशीर्वाद बी करके सेकंड फ्लोर।
So we headed to this new address and only managed to verbal confirmation that Mihir Joshi was in residence.
मैम मिहिर सर हैं?
कोई नहीं।
एक बार बच्चों से मुलाकात कर रहे थे।
लेकिन है नहीं कोई।
मेरे घर से नहीं। मैं बोला था आपके अच्छे नहीं है करके देखने लगा।
तो सर कहाँ पे काम करते हैं मैडम? जिले इंडिया में।
पता नहीं वो तो हमको पता नहीं, हमको मेहमान है।
We failed to lay eyes on Mihir Joshi, but his unavailability at that moment was not really suspicious. So we headed to the next person named in the FIR, Ms. Jyoti Vora, who lives in Andheri and is the independent director of Nakshatra Brand Limited.
Finding Jyoti Vora's apartment was not difficult. Her address was listed as 0728A, Hill Rock Society, Swatantra Sainik Nagar, Amboli. When we got there, we did find Jyoti Vora. She lives with her daughter in an apartment which is less than 200 square feet in area and boasts one room with an attached kitchen. She was also hospitable but refused to answer questions.
आप डायरेक्टर हैं कंपनी में?
हाँ, डायरेक्टर हूँ कंपनी में।
जब हम एफआईआर देखे तो आपका भी नाम था उसमें।
मेरे को कुछ कमेंट्स उसके ऊपर देनी नहीं है, बस आपको जो मिला है that is true.
These are just 2 of the 5 directors named in the FIR, and the problem is not their authenticity, but the fact that their living conditions do not match with the usual lifestyle of the directors of a multi-crore company. And then we ask a question that were these directors actually involved in day-to-day decision making, or were just dummy directors being paid a small fees to get all the decisions done? In Mumbai, Utkarsh Chaturvedi.
Well, so the PNB fraud gets curiouser and curiouser. Let's get you a story which is a consumer interest story now. And retirement fund body, Employees Provident Fund Organization, has decided to cut its interest rates marginally. The EPFO, which held a meeting of its Central Board of Trustees, has revised its interest payout to 8.55% from 8.65%. For more on that story, Yash Jain now joins in with the very latest. Yash, this is a marginal cut in the interest rate, but this is not the first time EPFO has undertaken this. Take us through the details you have.
Well, as you rightly pointed out, 2 most important takeaways from EPFO's board meeting which took place early today. As the first one you mentioned, the retirement body has cut the interest rate which it would be providing to its 5 crore subscribers in the year FY18 to 8.55% from 8.65% in the previous year. But do remember, this is the second consecutive interest rate cut which EPFO has undertaken, essentially from 8.8% in FY16 to 8.65% in FY17, and now for FY18 it has revised it to 8.55%. We are also given to understand that EPFO will have to pay approximately 45,000 crore in FY18 towards this particular interest outflow if we calculate with a percentage of 8.55%. Now, apart from this, we are also given to understand that the apex decision-making body of EPFO has also approved the proposal of mandating companies with a minimum employee strength of 10 employees to register with EPFO. Remember, this minimum employee strength currently stands at 20 employees, but we are also given to understand here that this particular change in the registration norm would not be implemented immediately, as the Labour Minister wants to have further discussions and understand the concerns of SMEs before he goes forward and implements this new registration norm. So yes, a minor interest rate cut of about 10 basis points would certainly be some disappointment for subscribers like you and me, but on the positive side of it, EPFO has taken a very important step to widen its bandwidth and essentially which will lead to more formalization of the economy.
He's known for running marathons, and it's just been a year since he occupied the corner office at Bombay House. So he's only just warming up. It's been an eventful year for N. Chandrasekaran as the chairman of Tata Sons. What are the hits and what are the misses and what is the unfinished agenda? Prashant joins us now with his special report on N. Chandra at 365. Prashant, take us through the key highlights.
Oh, it's been an absolutely eventful year at Tata Sons, and what we're basically going to do is take a look at the big fixes. Essentially, these were businesses which were not doing well, which were bleeding cash and needed an immediate fix. Let's begin with Tata Teleservices. The dispute with NTT Docomo was hurting the reputation at the group, and it wasn't going down well for the group internationally. $1.2 billion dispute resolved. As a result of that, the mobile business sold to Bharti late last year. Come to Tata Steel. The process started earlier, but the merger of the European business with ThyssenKrupp happened. Now, of course, Tata Steel is looking to buy stressed steel assets. Look at Tata Motors. Not one initiative, a bunch of things, but as a result of it, the long-forgotten commercial vehicle business is on the rebound again. You look at Tata Communications. Again, I mean, the process started before the approval to sell land parcels, valuable land parcels, has actually come through under Chandra's tenure. So a bunch of things, big fixes per se, which I think has got the ball rolling as far as Tata Sons is concerned. Now, of course, the market's focus is going to be the steady state operational efficiency which Chandra can drive at group businesses in terms of what he did earlier at TCS. We spoke with a bunch of Tata insiders, outsiders, group watchers, and this is their opinion. Listen in.
I think along with shareholder wealth, the restructuring, the kind of cleaning up he's done has been remarkable. When he inherited, there was already some existing issues around, what had happened. So I think he's calmed things down. He's restructured, Tata Steel, the European operations. He's got out of telecom already by exiting that business. I think in 1 year, if you list out the kind of things achieved, especially at a structural level, I think it has been phenomenal.
I would say that whatever he does, he would think well with respect to every stakeholder. He would ask the question, will this decision of mine enhance respect for me and for the Tata Group? And therefore, I have no doubt at all that whatever he does, as I have seen him do when he was leading TCS, would be to the best of the stakeholders.
I think it's an exemplary case of an uncluttered mind. I think in India we haven't seen many minds of this quality. When I see Chandra, I see this software man with an extraordinary sense of finance and direction. The fact that he ran a large empire in terms of people employed was less of a qualification, but he took software solutions to hundreds of clients around the world and believed in those solutions, and that's what he has brought to his job.
He is absolutely focused on the job that needs to be done. He has built a great team and he will enhance the team as he looks at the future. And finally, the outcomes will determine whether he is satisfying the customers, namely the shareholders and all the stakeholders.
Let me come to you, Zia Modi. So we all know, and we've been highlighting this all day in terms of what all has Chandra accomplished, be it, selling off the mobile business, fixing the entire telecom business really by a bunch of things, Tata Motors, Tata Steel, merger of the European business with ThyssenKrupp, or Tata Communications. We've seen action, and we all recognize that. But do you think now it is, maybe with the exception of the Mundra plant, which needs to be fixed, and that lies in Tata Power, it's basically more about getting more efficiency in the group, more about focusing on return ratios?
I think so. I think that is certainly the sense that the market has. The stocks are doing well. You look at his baby TCS with an approximate $6 trillion market cap. So I think he's looking to see how to basically cut the flab, cut the inefficiency, improve a sharper decision making. And I think very good in empowering the leaders of the various operating businesses. Wants them to take accountability, but understands that in order to do that, they need to be empowered as well. So I think he's getting that mix. And of course, brought in new people that he feels comfortable with.
Mr. Mehta, let me come across to you now. How do the trusts see the performance of N. Chandrasekaran in the last 1 year?
Okay. Let me first make a statement that from the trust, we have a broad understanding of how the group's performance is, but we have no direct day-to-day interaction with them, with the Tata Sons. So in that sense, my observations are, by their very nature, they are very broad. Also, to my mind, a big conglomerate and an organization such as Tata's, where there's, by sheer size, there's bound to be some inertia. The results do take time to show up. So what we can see today, or what we can assess today, is only the trends that we see. And every institution has the capacity to improve at every stage. There's no stage at which you can say that the institution has reached a stage where it has already reached its final destination. So having said all this, I would like to state that the main concern of the trusts has been the performance of the operating companies.
Right.
And we were worried when this unfortunate saga unfolded in October 2016,
right,
that the profits of the operating companies other than TCS and the JLR, the profits of the other companies were either stagnant or they were making losses. And that was a cause for major worry of the trust.
Things certainly have improved for the better, and the performance has been satisfactory, as you say. Ananta, let me come to you. I mean, you wrote that magnum opus in terms of, it was almost a blueprint for what the markets really expected of, Chandra at the helm of Tata Sons. How much of that has been accomplished, and what are the big things which are remaining according to you?
Magnum opus, I'm not sure if you can define it as one, but anyway, thanks Prashant for having me here. See, I think from our perspective, we could distill Chandra's strategy into sort of 4 broad areas. The first is, the ROE of the group was subpar in many cases. And so about 60 of the companies have ROE less than 10%. So that was obviously a big target area for Chandra, especially starting with the big companies to begin off with. The second was, the domestic consumption part of the entire Tata group is actually pretty small. It's below 10% if you exclude the financials. And that is an area of significant growth that we can expect in India over the next few years. The third part was, essentially trying to simplify some of the cross-holdings. There are multiple companies operating in the same area, so see whether, some of that can be combined. And the fourth area was there are some, pieces like financial services, for example, or maybe even retail, where, probably the Tata group can step up its presence significantly. So 1 year is really a short time, but I think, what is really achieved is fixing some of the problems in the larger companies. With the exception of maybe Tata Power, we've seen a lot of activity around Tata Motors, Tata Steel, Tata Tele. I thought was a pretty difficult decision to take, which he has taken. We've seen some activity in the simplification, and I think where we'll hopefully hear more news over the next few years is essentially in the remaining 2 areas.
That was a special discussion. Experts weighing in on N. Chandra completing a year at Tata Sons. How time flies, one would say. It was just the other day when he took over after the tumultuous phase in Tata Sons. Time for us to slip into a first break here on IBH, but when we return, you won't need to change your mobile number to a 13-digit one. We'll clear up that confusion when we return. And film star Kamal Haasan takes the political plunge, announces the launch of his new party. That big political story after the break. Welcome back to India Business Hour Plus. Air India is a beautiful airline, but it is trapped in debt net. That's the word coming in from Aviation Minister Ashok Gajapati Raju. Speaking with CNBC TV18, he said that the government will complete Air India's privatization in the next 1 year.
You see, Air India is a beautiful airline. Its books are bad, and to my mind, it is in a kind of a debt trap. So that's their problem. Now, the idea of a strategic disinvestment was that it would become professionally managed, and airlines are basically very competitive now. And procedures of government do not lend itself to those quick decisions that are required in this sector. So I think strategic disinvestment is what the government is thinking about. And there's an alternative mechanism in place now at the minister's level. The Honorable Finance Minister chairs it, and there are a few ministers on it. So they will take a call. As of now, a lot of suggestions are emerging, and we are having a look at all of it. we hope that in this year we'll be able to complete the exercise.
So the government there maintaining the Air India divestment will go through by the end of this year. Meanwhile, insolvency space is buzzing with activity. And on to the latest in the race now for Bhushan Power and Steel. Sources now telling us the firm's lenders will take a final call on the bids for Bhushan Power as early as next month. Also, Liberty House's bid is believed to have been disqualified. Ritu Singh joins it more on that story. So Ritu, is becoming clear that Tata Steel is clearly in the lead to buy out Bhushan Power. Tell us and fill in with us some more details on what we can expect on the road ahead.
That's right. Tata Steel is very much in the lead to buy out Bhushan Power and Steel's assets. In a committee of creditors meeting held today with the IRP, it was decided to reject the bid offered by Liberty House without opening the bid because of the fact that the Liberty House bid for Bhushan Power's assets came after the deadline had ended. This really sets an example for other cases to follow where bids, bankers are clearly sending out a signal that bids will not be accepted if they do not meet the criteria laid down in the IBC norms. Now understand that Tata Steel is, as of now, the highest bidder with an offer of 17,000 crore upfront cash payment and 7,500 crore equity infusion into Bhushan Power, miles ahead of what JSW Steel had offered for the company, and therefore negotiations will continue with Tata Steel. And we understand that 6th of March is the D-Day where the Committee of Creditors will be meeting again to evaluate the final offer as far as Tata Steel is concerned and then present the case to the NCLT.
So Liberty House's bid being disqualified because it came in after the deadline. Ritu, thanks for bringing in all those details. We're not done with the insolvency space just yet. Here's an important clarification on Bhushan Steel. Sources say that amongst its lenders, two banks, that is Union Bank of India and Bank of Baroda, will not be selling their exposure to the assets restructuring companies. We also learned that the Committee of Creditors is evaluating the bid submitted by Tata Steel. Well, that's another important update coming in there as far as Bhushan Steel is concerned. On to a development which has created a flutter in the telecom space. Now, a letter from the telecom department instructed telecom firms to start using 13-digit numbers from M2M customers. The letter created quite a buzz, as you can imagine, that now all mobile numbers will have 13 digits instead of 10 digits as we have right now. However, after digging in a little deep, that does not appear to be the case. Kritika Saxena joins in with an explainer. So, Kritika, nothing for us to be worried. We don't have to change our numbers. Is that the big takeaway from here?
Confusion arose earlier this week when most people mistook this notification to be something which is relevant to mobile phone users like you and me, but it is not. So that's the important clarification, that it is only for machine-to-machine devices. Now, what does that essentially mean? M2M devices are essentially any machine that can be connected to another machine through a SIM card via a network connectivity is what we term as M2M. To give you a few examples, this refers to areas like connected cars, electric meters, water meters. More specifically to something that we can relate to, it could be smart homes, smart television, smart cars also, for example, even electric vehicles. Now, what is the point and why has government undergone this? I spoke to a multitude of people, and my sources say that the reason for this is that the government expects the 10-digit number schemes to run out soon, and as a result of that, they are expecting significant and exponential growth in the connected devices segment over the next 7 to 10 years. So they are foreseeing that and preparing. And why 13 and not 12 or 11 or any other number? Simply to prepare for the next few years. So they expect this to be sufficient for at least 15 to 20 years, and there won't be any case of the number schemes running out or reaching a point of having to upgrade numbers, etc., etc. So what happens now, if you are someone who has an IoT device at home or who has a smart home, who has Alexa, for example, you will have to change your existing number between the time period of 1st October to 31st December. And if you have a new option, which is something that most telecom operators are working for, that will be applicable from the 1st of July. What's the impact on telcos? A little bit of an increase in investment and expenditure, since they will have to upgrade their current technological processes. Listen to what Nikhil Pava had to say explaining this.
The way people are looking at it is that in the future, we're going to have a lot more connected devices than people. So, for example, all your vehicles will be connected. your electricity meters will be connected to the internet. So we are going to get a lot more connected devices, which is why there are SIMs that are going to be in these devices, and therefore what the government has done is it's tried to come up with a 13-digit number for it. Because then this will be distinct from, let's say, your mobile number or my mobile number. And the reason they're doing this is because the number of devices is going to be much larger than the number of people.
So there you have it, 13-digit numbers may be around the corner, and just imagine the government fears that 10-digit numbers may actually run its course because of the growth in mobile phones and handsets, and that tells you the staggering growth that the Indian telecom industry has been witnessing. Let's get you now the big political story of the day, and movie star Kamal Haasan has finally taken a political plunge as we all expected. He has announced the launch of his party called Makkal Needhi Maiam, which loosely translates to People's Justice Front. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal joined Kamal Haasan on stage as he announced the launch of his party. The Tamil soul is burning, said Kamal Haasan, as he promised to form a government that will listen to the people and not tell people what to do.
Ini கடமை இருக்கிறது நமக்கு. இது ஒரு நாள் கொண்டாட்டம் அல்ல.
We have a duty from now on.
முறையாக போகிறது நமக்கெல்லாம்.
This is not a one-day celebration.
அது நினைவில் இருக்கட்டும்.
It's going to be a way of life for all of us.
இந்த சந்தோஷத்துடன்
With this happiness, let me remind you, comes responsibility.
என்பதை உணருங்கள். மற்றவர்க்கு
You have to be a forerunner, an example for others.
நீங்கள் எடுத்துக்காட்டாகவும் முன்னோடிகளாகவும் விளங்க வேண்டும்.
Well, that's Kamal Haasan, and soon you'll also see Rajinikanth launching his own party. Meanwhile, more political stories. 2 AAP MLAs are in police custody for allegedly assaulting Delhi Chief Secretary Anshu Mishra on Monday night. A medical report shows the Chief Secretary has bruises and pain. Aam Aadmi Party accuses Mishra of making caste slurs, claims its Muslim and Dalit members are being targeted. Congress President Rahul Gandhi launches yet another scathing attack on Prime Minister Modi. This time, Rahul Gandhi calls Modi an instrument of corruption. He says, and I quote, Narendra Modi is not against corruption. He is an instrument of corruption, unquote. But that's not it. Taking another jibe, Rahul goes on to say, and I quote again, Modi's magic can make democracy disappear from India very soon, unquote.
The money that the Indian public put into the banks, 22,000 crores of it belongs to Nirav Modi. It doesn't belong to the people of India, it belongs to Nirav Modi. So Nirav Modi takes the money. And one after the other, you will see these scams. They're coming out. We've already seen Nirav Modi. We've seen a Rotomac. We've seen a Malia. They're coming. And this is what the Congress party has been saying for a very long time. That Mr. Narendra Modi is not actually against corruption. He is corruption.
They say they're going to bring black money back.
He is the instrument of corruption.